we need to accept. So if me and Rubi could have had a laptop, even when Chumba have network problem, we will have worked together, we two, and then she will have joined us anytime when network, she will be able to resume back to normal. But the problem is we have a problem. I have laptop problem. Accessibility is very difficult. It is task waiting. We need to go plan. We planned, but working the plan is even very challenging.
I hear you, Hassan. I hear you, and I agree with you. I'm gonna have another meeting. So I had a meeting on Wednesday. We usually meet every 2 weeks. Me, Hayun, and Esther, right? So we meet to discuss issues, concerns that are happening, and in the program. And so we met on Wednesday, this last Wednesday, and for the moment there were like we keep telling, like we keep saying that this is an issue, that it needs to be resolved. But for the moment, unfortunately, I know, and I know this is not the news that you're looking for. There's still no update on the purchase of these laptops, and we are doing, like, we as in me, Esther, and Hayun are putting a lot of pressure on York's administration to continue to inform us, to update us, and to also not only inform us and update us, but to also accelerate it, right? To expedite it. So because we are arguing that because there is no access to the learning center, like, you guys need laptops, right? Like, that's the only way you can, and functioning laptops, not laptops that don't work, right, Hassan? Laptops that are functioning well, and I agree 100%, Hassan.
Yeah.
And I mean, what they're saying is that they don't know what the forecasted date for the delivery will be. So I know how frustrating. I understand how frustrating it is. I am on your side. Know this. Both me, Esther, Ayub, we're all on your side. And we're trying. I was gonna say I have another meeting with them in 2 weeks. So what I can do is, again, we can stress the fact. I'm gonna try stressing the fact again that all of you are working really hard on trying to maintain progress towards the completion of your degree. But in order to do that, you need laptops. Like, and it's not like it's imperative. It's essential, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try again, Hassan, and I will. Hopefully, what I'm trying to say is by our last class in the winter, which is the 12th of December. I will hopefully I'll be able to give you another update on it. But I'll also email Hayun again. I think I'll email her again also next week and see what I can, like, what kind of information I can get from her. Again, if anything has changed or moved. Okay, Hassan.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can definitely promise you that. But yes, so apart from the laptop issue now, like in itself, like what I'm interested in also is how it's affecting the book review assignment, which is what you were saying, Hassan, right? You're saying that basically it's been difficult to work on the book review assignments, right? And because of the fact that because of all these issues. So what I want to hear now is I want to also hear how everyone else is doing on sort of the book review assignment. So before we begin with like addressing contents, and we talk a little bit about Tilley, but before we do that, I wanted to sort of hear like how everyone's group are doing, like how all the groups are doing in terms of the book group assignments, how you guys are progressing, because I'll tell you why. Technically and theoretically, obviously, this was the plan, right? But like you said, Hassan, plans can change, so it's not a problem. I don't have a problem changing plans. But the initial plan was to actually for you guys to present on December 12th, right? So in 2 weeks from today. So now I wanted to ask you guys, is that reasonable? Does that sound reasonable to you guys? Because from what I'm hearing, Hassan, for you, maybe for your group, it might not be reasonable, because in the wake of all these issues, at least that's what I kind of understood. Like it might be very difficult for you guys to be able to present by December 12th. But I want to hear before you respond to that, Hassan, I want to hear also from other groups. I want to hear, maybe I see now Mohammed Siha has joined us. I see Rukia has joined us. So there's a few more people now also here. So I want to hear from maybe from different groups, if it's possible. Like how is the group?
Yes, Mugro.
Yes, Aden, please tell me.
Yeah, the way problems is there. The way Hassan has addressed us, even our group, this due to laptop has also affected us. And then our group now, what we have done is that we have divided the book chapters according to some chapters, and then we are reading. No, me, I have prepared and I have jotted down in a full scope, and then I want to write and look for a laptop and then present in that one. And tonight we have agreed that we have an WhatsApp group that we share our points now, what we have discussed, the main point of the book. That's what we have agreed, three of us. And then we are still reading the book. And what is the challenge that we are occurring is that this due to laptop. Otherwise, we are doing a good job in that assignment.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear, Adit. So like you're saying, regardless of the laptop issue, like you guys are making some progress. In a sense, you are able to make some progress towards the completion of the assignment. That's comforting to hear for me, because it means that like some work is happening. And Hassan was also saying it likewise, that I mean there is some work that they're able to do, but maybe not fully, not everything. Who else anyone else that wants to a little bit talk about, like speak about this? Mohammed, yeah.
Good morning, Mirko.
And we have discussed this issue of
I hear it, Mohammed Sia, and I hear Keen as well. I think Keen, can you hold off 1 second? So Mohammed Sia and then you, okay? Just because he started first, I hear his voice first, that's why. So like Mohammed Sia and then Keen. Is that okay, Keen?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we have discussed this issue of laptop from last week, even the Madam Minister, and she gave us a feedback. She told us to get solutions for laptop in January this month. And still we're having these problems, but we are surviving. So that we also need for you as a provide for us an email, and then we need for more support, because the class are becoming very money, and we want to read more important and writing for a lot of work. So that even as we need for more support. But sometimes there is an electrical problem that even your phones will be becoming off due to the lack of electricity, because the phones that you are using for support, as also for other purposes, not only for as a class. At the same time, you cannot read something for the phone something, so that we need also more support for your site to begin to write to us an email. Thanks.
I heard you, Keen. Thank you for that. Thank you for that too. Yeah, I know it's difficult, and you've been waiting for a few months already. So I know that it's getting a little bit frustrating as well. Mohammed, yeah, go for it as well.
Thank you, Mirko. Good morning and good afternoon to the others.
Good afternoon, Mohammed.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you quite well.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the books or the groups that we had to read about the book assignment. For us, we have the home going. We have a lot of books in that book. Me, Omot, and Abukar. So at the start of this week, we had a conference called me, Abukar, and Omot. We talked about the book and how we could tackle the many pages of the book that we had. So like in that task we divided into 3.
Mhm.
Fortunately, Omot has already started reading the book before me and Abukar.
Yeah.
And we gave him the first part. Abukar took the second part, and I also took the last part. So we had also agreed that we have to form a WhatsApp group so that we can share everybody what he has read. Even if you have read a half page a day, you post them the what stood or the ideas that stood out for you, so that we can combine them after reading the whole book. And then Abukar said, I cannot read the middle part of the book before I read the first part. And then like me and Mot, we were trying to convince him so that he could focus on what he has and then write for us the main points. And then after that, Omot will also be writing in short notes of the start of it, of the paragraphs or the chapters that he had read prior to what this Abukar is reading. We had also communicated yesterday. Omot said that if we can, because the book's very many and we need to read a lot of things, he suggested that let's add the group to our tier, Mirko, yourself, so that you can also give us your points or what you understand about some of the things or the themes of the book. But Omot said we had to ask Mirko that one. He's also busy. We need to ask him if he can come to our group. And I said, okay. So we are continuing reading the book and we're enjoying.
That's good.
Yeah, that's all I can say from that.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear it. So if you want to add me to your little group, basically to your WhatsApp group, you're welcome to. Like, it's not a problem for me to. Actually, if all of you want to add me to your little WhatsApp groups, I'll enjoy reading your conversations, and I can join in if you guys have some questions and stuff specific to your groups. So you can definitely add me to your little. If you guys created little WhatsApp groups, you can all add me to your little WhatsApp groups, like to your smaller WhatsApp groups. That's completely fine. Like I'm okay with that. So please do. Don't worry about that, Mohammed. And this is again goes to everyone as well. Hassan, I see your hand up. Hassan Noor, I see your hand up. So you go for it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Yes, sir.
Hassan, go for it. Tell us.
Despite the fact I don't want to dominate and the rest have maybe concern to share, I will be very brief. And my suggestion is that now that when we divided the book into portions and we assign individual person pages, a particular page number from this to that. And sometimes, as Abukar said, and Mohammed Siah was now telling us challenges they face, is sometimes when you don't read the first part of the story and then you join in the middle, quite confusing. And it actually, because only that it requires a lot of time, it is effective when everyone goes through the whole task, all the pages, understand the history, and then come up with the points. Then organizing it into portions, it is when we divide it, it gives an easy work, it makes work easier, but it will confuse the readers, those who are reading the portions, the history flow. And then each person among the group will end up in suspense of what happened, how it happened.
Yeah.
But when everyone goes through the whole book, if possible, it will give a clue of what the book is all about. And each of the group members can then contribute. So we need your advice on that. Can we continue this way, or among divisions, or you suggest that we do it differently?
Yes, Hassan. And I mean, my advice, or my suggestion rather, would be to all read it completely. I mean, that's usually when you do a book review, that's usually what you do. You all read the whole book, and you then discuss it, right? The reason why I also suggested that another possibility could be to split the books is because I know that because of the issues that you're all having with laptops and the issues accessibility, basically, I thought it might be a possibility as well for those groups that want to split the book. But I agree with you. I agree with you completely, both Hassan and Abu Bakr, I guess, and Mohammed. I agree with you guys that it's difficult to read a book just by starting in the middle, for example, or at the end. So I agree with you. I agree with you all on that. So what I would suggest, my suggestion is, if you guys can, to read the entire books. Like every member reads the entire book, and then you guys can discuss them. However, if because of time and because of other commitments and because of other concerns and issues such as laptops, for example, you guys are not able to access you're not able to fully read the whole book, then at that point I would suggest you can go in the direction of dividing it. But yes, I agree, Hassan. It's very complicated to read only a piece of a book, right, without knowing much of the beginning or the end. But again, it's up to the groups, I think, at the end of the day, to decide what route they want to take. Hassan, like they can, if your group feels they want to read the whole book, that's fine, and I would encourage you to do that. If other groups feel that they are able to work within like a more parceled, like, and broken down, like structure, then those groups can go ahead and do it that way. I know that in the past, like last year, for example, your colleagues, they did different things. Some groups read the whole book, right? Some groups read the whole book, and they all then discussed the entire book together. Other groups divided it. Other groups decided to do that, and it worked well for them. Of course, it's like you said, it might be a little harder because you don't have familiarity with the whole story. So maybe it might force you to like sort of go back sometimes and look at what's happening here. But if you coordinate well and if you organize well, it can still work. I think it can still work even with the division. It just takes really good organization, I think, and coordination between the group members. So what it means is that maybe the person that does, the way I could see it like working well is this way. So let's say that everyone has a different availability, right? So let's say there's 3 group members, and group member A or group member 1 has some time now, right, to start. So maybe that person can do the first part of the book, right? Because that person has some time right away, but they'll be more busy later, right? So they do the first part, and that's it. But they put the notes on the first part right away, right? Like for everyone else to look at. And then the second group member has some time afterwards, so they can start with the second section and so forth, right? That's a way I think that could be a way that if well organized could work. But it has to be according to everyone's availability and sort of, you see what I mean? So it has to be, it's something that you come to an agreement together, depending on maybe everyone's availability and accessibility. That could work. However, if you're noticing that doesn't work, Hassan, then you guys can also go in the direction of each one reading the whole book, and just do it the traditional way, I'll say, because that's the traditional way, right, of doing a book review. Like each one reads the whole book. I hope that helps, Hassan. So basically, what I'm saying is, my advice would be to read the whole book. But if obviously because of concerns and issues, then you guys can go ahead and split it up, and it should work fine. Like it might work really, really well, because it's worked in the past. I've seen it work in the past really well. So, okay. Any other? But my question, guys, is the following: do you think realistically? And I'll show you guys what my question is. Can you guys see the question? Do you think like December, you will be ready to present by December 12th? Or no? Like, do you think you guys will be ready by then, or do you think it's unlikely? I see already, it's already a split. I mean, obviously we don't have to decide today. This is just to have an idea of how things are. Anyone else wants to vote? Hasn't had the chance to vote yet? so I have an idea of what everyone thinks, you know. I see Hassan said maybe 15th, but the problem with the 15th, Hassan, is that it's not a Saturday, so it will be, I think it's a Tuesday. So unless we want to schedule like a special class for the 15th, if everyone's okay with that, we could do that. We could schedule a special class on the 15th, and then like if everyone can be ready by then we can do it that way. What I would suggest is, okay, I see that not everyone has voted, so okay, it was just to have an idea, but I guess what I'm understanding is that it's a split, sort of, it's probably going to be a split answer, right? Like some people think they might be able to, some people think probably not. So what I would say is let's try keep working on it, keep working on the book projects, and then we'll talk about it again next week, right? And then next week we'll see if it's reasonable how much progress you've been able to make on it, and whether you'll be able to present on the 12th. If not, we can always have a special arrangement, like Hassan maybe also was suggesting. We can make a special arrangement and have like a class just to present. So maybe we don't meet on the 12th, for example. We don't meet on Saturday the 12th, but we meet on Tuesday the 15th, if everyone's okay with that. And then you guys all present on Tuesday the 15th. This is obviously like I'm just just because Hassan suggested the 15th, it doesn't have to be the 15th, but we can find maybe a different day. What I'm trying to say is if it's just a question of a few extra days that you need, we can still arrange it so that you guys can present before the end of the term, right? You see what I'm saying? So that you can conclude this assignment before the end of the term. Mohammed, did you want to say something? Did you want to add something? Oh, no, okay. I thought I saw you unmuted, so I thought you wanted to say something. I see Abukar wants, Abukar, you wanted to say something maybe.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Abukar.
Michael, the way we can see this book, the book is very bulky, and the time we have is not enough. So the best thing, the advice you gave us, you told us that for you to read, it is good to read the whole book, because you cannot skip one part, then you read the other one. That one, I think it's not going to be possible, because you might miss very essential information. Mm-hmm. So according to my suggestion, I want you to extend the deadline of the book so that we can be able to accomplish.
Okay. So Abukar, I hear you, and this could be a possibility. Honestly, it could be a possibility that I'm thinking about too. So what I would suggest, what I was saying, Abukar, is for now, what I would suggest is keep working on it, right? Till maybe, and then we'll talk about it a little more next week too, and see if you guys were able to make a lot of progress or not, right? So like what I'm saying is we'll sort of take it step by step every week to see where you guys are at. If by next week and the middle of, and even the week after that, you guys are still at a place where you feel like you're not able to present on it yet, then what we can do is we can decide to postpone the presentations for after the break. So for the first class after the break, right? So like when we come back after the holiday break, you guys could have we take the first session and you guys present on the books, which will give you basically a whole other month to read the book. And I think that would be more than enough time to finish reading, right? We can do that. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with doing that. The only thing is, guys, that at that point, and this is something you should be aware of if we do make that decision, that the only thing will be that at that point you will be reading both the books and like working on the assignment for the books, as well as you will be doing another individual assignment during the holidays. Like, so you'll have two assignments basically during the break. Does that make sense? So basically, because there was already supposed to be an assignment during the break, so what will happen is you'll end up having two assignments simultaneously. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. Like, I think you guys can handle it, but it's just so that you guys are aware of it, right? So that you know that could be that, like, when you if we make the decision to postpone the presentations to the first week back after the break, that could become the case. So you will be working on presentations as well as an individual assignment at the same time. Obviously, we can make the due dates slightly different, right? So like we can have the presentations on the first day back, and then we can have the individual assignments to the week after. That's fine too. But I'm just saying that you will probably be doing kind of juggling both things at the same time. Okay, Abuka, does that make sense? But we can definitely extend. Okay, we can definitely extend, but we'll talk. Let's see how we.
Okay, that's
So try working on it this week though. See how much progress you guys can keep making, and then we'll talk about it again next week. And then if anything, next week we can make an official decision on the together on the thing. All right, on the due date. We will try our best. Yeah, thank you, Hassan. Yes, exactly.
Hi, sir. Hello.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, Hassan. So thank you for that comment. So Hassan just said that you guys we'll try our best, basically. We'll see, and that's what I'm saying too. Like, try your best to see how much you can get done before the break. If it's impossible to get it all done before the break, that's fine. We postpone it to after the break. And then it's just that's how it goes, right? That's how course planning goes. You plan things, but then you have to sort of change them according to how things are going in everyone's lives, right? So I mean, there's always unforeseen things that happen. So I'm fine with it. It's not a problem for me. We just need to figure out how to then reshape the course so that you guys don't have too much happening at the same time, right? Because you also have to then consider that in the winter, you also have another course, right? At the same time as ours. So you guys are gonna be having 2 courses instead of 1. So also always think about that too. Okay? So it's important that when we do make a decision, it has to be. I want you guys to make a decision that's well informed, like it's well informed by what's happening afterwards. So it's not like I don't want you to end up with like a million things to do afterwards just because we decided to postpone stuff, because that would be poor decision making on my end as an instructor, right? To just tell you guys, yeah, of course, just switch everything. That's not a problem. And then you end up with like a million things afterwards. That would be on me, because that would mean that I didn't give you guys enough information to make a good decision. So what I'm saying is like, make sure, like, we'll talk about it more maybe next week before we decide. But I do want you to know that there are a few more assignments remaining in this class, and there is also you will have other classes at the same time next well, one more class next time. So you do need to consider that too. Okay. But yes, I agree that right now the biggest difficulty is the lack of laptops, functioning laptops, and that does impact you. And hopefully in the winter you will have laptops. Mohammed, yes, I heard you. Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to add something about the book assignment. Currently, those graduate students who are in the camps, we also enrolled another program, which is the BA mentorship program that we are currently undertaking with the BA students who are doing an extensive course this month. We had a meeting yesterday, and the schedule is a bit tight for them, and we should also be reading with them and giving them mentorship, helping them. It's a bit complicated for us to read the books, jump from this course to the other course, and then doing all this book stuff and the assignments and the readings and the week postings. Even for them to post, there's so many things to do. But with all those things in mind, even January, they are also starting those BA students another courses which we will be considered also, as BA mentors if we do better with this one. So for me, with all these challenges, I could have suggested that we still continue working hard with our book assignments, and then we just finish it off before we go to break, and then we come back when we are coming from the break in a good and a bit relaxed mind, so that we can again start afresh. So if my friends will agree with that, it would have been very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you for. I mean, both suggestions are on the table as of now, I think. And I don't. What I was saying is, I don't think we have to decide today, right? We can still decide next week. We still have next week. And I do think what you're saying is reasonable, Mohammed, in light of the fact that you also have other work now as peer mentors. I also know. I'm also aware that not everyone is a peer mentor, so not everyone necessarily has the same obligations and responsibilities, but regardless, it is a good point to bring up, I think, Mohammed. Anyways, yeah, we don't have to make a decision now. You guys can keep talking about it amongst each other as well during the week, right? As a group, so that you guys can keep discussing it during the week and see what you guys come up with, right? Like if you guys are able to come up with a decision that makes everyone happy or not. And then we'll decide next week. I think we'll make the decision next week. Aden, was that you or Abuka? I can't really hear.
Yeah, Micro. Thank you for Micro. Thank you for your flexibility and the way Mohammed has suggested. In fact, everybody. We also suggest in the way Sia has suggested, and then we'll finish this book before break. Inshallah, with that that is what we have our mind, and then. The way he has said, everybody is a mentor, is among the mentorship program, and then today, when we are starting this Zoom meeting, they also have another Zoom meeting, and then we are supposed even to attend that meeting. Even only Arte is attending that meeting. We also likely to attend that meeting. I also request that you even give us another time, at least at 3 p.m. we are supposed to start our Zoom meeting in order that we attend even their meeting on Saturdays.
Hold on, Aden, can I stop you just for a second? So just because I want to clarify something. So hold on. So you guys have another Zoom meeting at 3, starting at 3. Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, so that gives us only another 15 minutes. We only have another 15 minutes before.
No.
Is that right? So all of you need to leave in 15 minutes.
No. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that when we are starting our meeting at 2 p.m., they also started their meeting. So I also requested that at least we have a different time, that in order that we attend their meeting from that professor, and then and then we attend our meeting also within the today. That's what I was even suggesting.
Okay, Adel, let me clarify. So Mohammed, you want to tell me?
Yeah. I want to have a small talk with Aden. I want to clarify for him yesterday. He said that those graduate students, except from Mate, who has finished his graduate project and staying in Dagale, can attend the meeting of the BA students, and we can also have our normal class. It's okay, she said that, Aden, if you can remember. And we move on to our business of the day. All the time elapses.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just before we move on to the contents, I know that we want to move on to the contents, and you're correct, Mohammed, but I need to understand something. So are the classes at the same time? This is what I'm trying to understand. So you guys have so there's our class as well as the class where you guys are mentoring for at the same time, Mohammed and Aden.
Yeah.
They're at the same time.
They have the students. Yeah, we are at the same time, I think. So
at 2 p.m. you also have the other class that you're supposed to attend as peer mentors.
Yeah, but today we are okay.
Like today you don't have
Ayun
it, but
said
next.
That I'll talk to Mirko. Ayun said that you.
I hear a lot of I hear like I'm confused. Yes, Keen, is that you?
Yeah, Abukar, mute for the microphone so that we'll hear that every person what is he or she saying that.
Yeah, thank you, Keen. That would be actually, thank you for that suggestion, Keen. Yeah, Abukar, if you could please mute the mic. I think it's coming, there's a lot of background noise coming from your end. Thank you, Keen. Yes, Mohammed, you were saying, so sorry, I'm a little bit confused now. So I thought that the class that you guys,
Let me
go for it.
Hayun said yesterday for tomorrow you can attend as usual the class or your class, the graduate class with Mirko, and then after that I'll be talking to him and we will arrange different times with the classes.
So okay, so this is Professor Parsad, right?
Yeah.
Gail.
Jail Prasad. Yeah.
Okay, so she will be talking to me to arrange different times for the classes. I see. Okay.
It will be Hayun who said that. It was
Or
Hayun.
Hayun will. Okay, so Hayun will talk about organizing different times. Okay, so basically,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Okay, now it's much clearer. So for today though, you can attend this class, but you still want to try to make a piece of the other one. That's what Aden was saying, I think. Aden, is that what you were saying? That you want to try to also make a piece of the other class?
Yeah. That's what I am saying. Thank you. That's what I was even. Thank you.
Okay, no, but I was a little bit concerned. That's why. Okay, so let's try. Okay, let's move on. You're right then, Mohammed. Let's move on as quickly as possible to what we wanted to cover for today. So we'll leave discussions about deadlines till next week. So you guys can keep talking about the possible deadlines. So we have two possibilities on the table, right? We finish by the 12th, or we will leave it for after the break, or not necessarily the 12th. Okay, that's it. Okay.
I have another suggestion, but for time we can move on.
Mohammed, if you have another suggestion in terms of deadlines, I would suggest let's write it down and we can talk about it next week.
Okay.
Let's move on to what we actually had planned for today, which is the continuation of our discussion on Tilley, right? Which we started last week, if you remember correctly. Actually, 2 weeks ago we started, not last week. So we said a few weeks ago, we began talking about, if you remember, this book, which is called Doing Respectful Research, right? And this is a book written by Susan Tilley, who is a scholar, right? She's a writer. She's actually a friend of Professor Nambuso. So she's actually someone who in the past has even come to visit our classes. I don't know if she will this year because this year is a little bit different, unfortunately. But she's an excellent scholar, and she writes from a very critical perspective on many issues, right? So her work here, doing respectful research, like we were saying last time as well, is basically a book about research, really, as it says, right? It's a book about doing research. So it's about the processes that one needs to go through when one begins to actually do the act of research. So all the way from choosing a problem or choosing an area of focus, to determining your key questions, all the way to reading, so doing your literature review, and then choosing a method for doing research, and all the way then to analyzing the data and so forth. So it's all the steps. She basically, in her book, she analyzes every single step that you need to accomplish to complete a research, a piece of research, right? To document a piece of research. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we began by, before we actually look at what Susan Tilley obviously offers us, or what she's talking about, before we do that, we started by looking at a few key questions, if you guys remember. So we looked at 3 key questions, right? We looked at what does doing research mean to you? Then we looked at why does one engage in research? And what kind of research you see on a daily basis? Who are the actors of this research, right? And then we began to look at, but we only began in this case to look at why does Tilley specifically choose to include the word respectful, right? So why emphasize the word respectful in her title? She could have just said doing research, but why does she say doing respectful research, right? Why that key word respectful? And so when we looked at the responses that a few weeks ago, when we looked at these questions, you guys gave me a few responses, remember? So we said that doing research, we looked at what doing research means to you, and many of you said, well, obviously doing research means trying to know something, right? That you didn't necessarily know previously, and trying to understand why that is, why that thing is. So trying to understand the reasons for maybe a problem or an issue that exists in real life, right? A lot of you spoke about the importance of, for example, finding out the causes of this issue and trying to propose solutions. So for many of you, research seems to be something, a way to make an impact, in a sense, right, on social reality, a way to affect change, maybe, perhaps. And how you affect change? Well, you research a problem, right? You try to understand its root causes, and then you try to address some possible solutions. Many of you also spoke about research as a way to collect information, which is fair. In fact, we do always do a literature review as part of a research process, and the literature review is just that. It's basically a way of collecting information, right? So you read extensively, you document yourself extensively on everything that people have said, have written, have spoken about a specific topic, right? So it is a way of collecting information. And then some of you also went a little bit further and also used a lot of the keywords that we usually see in research. For example, you spoke about collecting and analyzing data, right? Which is specifically a part of your methodology, right? So when you decide how you collect data, what data to collect, and how then you analyze that data, right? What themes or what aspects of that data matter most to you in answering your key questions, right? So these are all things that you guys said that we collected, as you can tell. Can you guys see them? The points that you guys made? Can you guys see the presentation? So these I took all from you guys. These are basically all the points that you guys mentioned a few weeks ago, right? When we started addressing what doing research means to you. Then we went further. Then we started looking at. Then I asked you, okay, guys. So what are some examples? Remember, of research that you come across daily? What are some of these examples that you see in your daily lives? And who are some of the people that usually engage in research? And so these were some of the answers that you guys provided. Again, as you can tell, it's extremely vast and extremely well, in a sense, it's extremely well presented because you guys really did all the work already. I didn't have to say much. Some examples that you guys see. Well, you guys talked about, for example, a lot of research on early marriage, on female genital mutilation, on female enrollment in schools, on forced migration. Obviously, this speaks to your daily reality, right? If I'm not wrong, I'm assuming. So these are all issues that you see and contentions that you see in your daily lives. So a lot of issues are revolving around gender disparity, and a lot of issues obviously surrounding forced migrations and the status as refugees, right? Then you guys spoke about, for example, also a lot of needs assessment research, which you see ongoing on a daily basis. So the idea of basically assessing the needs of a given population or a given area. In this case, specifically, raw information is collected from the community to then identify problems and needs on the ground, right? To hopefully inform policy and practices on a larger scale. And then you guys also spoke about, obviously, the realities of the pandemic. So the impact of COVID-19, for example, on target groups, specifically maybe gendered and so forth. And so that is a more a more current issue, right? Or a more widespread issue but it's a very selective issue. So something that is happening quickly in response to something, and that's also a type of research, right? It's very problem driven, very contextual. So right now there is a pandemic, so a lot of research that's happening is happening in response to obviously this emergency. This is emergency research, right? It's a research in pursuit of trying to understand emergency situations. You guys also spoke about, for example, different styles of research, different methods of research. You spoke about a quantitative style of research, and you spoke about a qualitative style of the research, which today we will look into a little bit more detail what that means, right? But generally speaking, you guys spoke about quantitative as trying to look for numbers and data. And so you might have things like questionnaires, sampling, and so forth, these sort of methods. And then you also spoke about more qualitative approaches to research. So you guys spoke about, for example, group discussions, face-to-face, interviews, surveys, and so forth. You guys also gave a few examples of actors, right? So here we have some of the examples, and some of them ones which are most frequently can be frequently seen in, again, in your realities, in your everyday life. And you spoke about, for example, government as an important actor. The government finances, so gives resource for research, sends people to do the research, hires people to do the research. Sometimes you've been hired yourselves. I know some of you have direct experience with research. To work for a specific government or NGO or a UN body or institution to actually perform some of this research, right? And so perhaps interact with the community to analyze and to collect data on specific issues. And so we have governments, we have communities, we have camp leaders, for example, students, graduate students like yourselves, organizations, and so forth. So all these are all possible actors, all possible people that actually have engaged with research and continue and will engage with research. And then you also mentioned obviously scientists and pharmaceutical companies and the WHO. This is more specifically relating to research right now that's happening in terms of the pandemic. So this is just to give you an idea of all of your knowledge, basically. This is just all of your knowledge that you've given me, in a sense, on research, right? All of that research is to you and that you've seen on a daily basis in your lives. Before leaving last time, I mentioned one final question, right? This is the question on why Tilley chooses to include the word respectful. And you gave me some initial thoughts on that as well, right? So you guys spoke about, for example, the importance of belonging. So a lot of you spoke about the idea of doing research where you do not belong. So maybe we can expand a little bit on this today as well, hopefully. And then the idea of personal bias. So the biases, in a sense, that one person can hold, right? Some people may have hold assumptions about a specific population or a specific community. And it's important that the person needs to explore those assumptions, because it's important that they disrupt them, right? And then you guys spoke about the correct protocols to conduct research as well. So that could be an idea of respectful as well. So what are the correct protocols? And then the importance of respect towards a community. So for example, you need permission. And I remember that this came directly from a few of, from Rukia and from Rukia, I think, and, if I'm not mistaken. So the importance of gender, for example, of the researcher versus that of the participants. So this is an important element as well. So someone, let's say if a man is doing research on a theme or a topic like female genital mutilation in a specific community, they have to be very wary and very watchful of the way they pose themselves, right? Because a lot of these questions may be actually of a very sensitive nature and a very gendered nature. So that's important to point out. And then the importance of, some of you pointed out the importance of confidentiality. So the importance of the relationship, in a sense, between participants and the researcher, right? So this, and the importance of maintaining and respecting that in a sense, that relationship that is established between the two. So these are all elements that you guys began to think about when you thought about respectful, right? Why respectful research? And these are actually all elements that Susan Tilley speaks about in her work. So Susan Tilley, in her work, in her book, she's not interested so much in writing another book of just like how you do research. She's interested more in what are the complexities, what are the small untold things that happen when someone is doing research, right? So what are all the ethical questions, for example, that we ask ourselves when we're actually contemplating a research project? And how do we position ourselves and compare to our participants? And how can we be respectful towards participants? So at the basis of all of her work, really, all of Susan Tilley's work is one important element, the element of relationships, right? So how do we honor and respect the relationships that a researcher builds with the people, with his or her participants? That's really the nutshell of Susan Tilley's work, and how not only how do we honor and how do we respect those relationships, but also what does it mean to analyze those relationships and look at, for example, the power dynamics that are at play, right? So for example, when someone does research, right? So when someone, and it can be any of us, it can be me, it can be you, it can be a researcher that you might have seen already in your communities. When a researcher is doing research, what does that mean in terms of the power dynamic between him or her and the participants that are that he or she chooses to research, right? To write about, basically. So that's an important element here, because there's always power happening. There's always a power dynamic at play. And that power dynamic works within a specific relationships that situate the researcher compared to his participants or her participants, as well as situate the researcher compared to the body of knowledge that is out there. Does that make sense, guys? What I'm saying, does it make sense? So that's what really Susan Tilley is trying to focus on. That is really what she's trying to focus on. So the first really element that is important from her work. So she's not trying to write a text basically for in-depth discussion. She's more giving, as we said, thoughtful consideration to elements which are usually not spoken about when we do research. So the first element that she speaks about is the importance of language, right, and discourse. So she wants us to be really always mindful of the language that we use. And we've seen this already, right? We've seen this already in our course when we spoke about, remember that words are never neutral. Words are never neutral. Words are always, in a sense, they're always loaded, or they always carry political meaning, right? And words are always representative of, like, they represent a specific reality and a specific interpretation. So in a sense, language can always be used as a tool of exclusion. That's what Susan Tilley tells us. And so it is important that when we write, when we begin our research process, it is important that we think about, in what ways does the language that I'm using, in what ways does it actually honor and represent the people that I'm trying to research, or in what ways does it actually exclude them? So for example, can the people understand the language that I'm using, first of all? And secondly, do they have any issues with that language being used? Because that's the importance of it as well, right? So the importance of language is really, really crucial to Susan Tilley. And because when we're writing, we're obviously going to be doing a lot of research. We're going to be looking at a lot of articles, a lot of things, a lot of papers that have been written by different authors. But what is important is that we need to understand whether the language that we're taking from these authors is actually makes sense to our participants as well, if you see what I'm saying. So we, as researchers, we always need to be positioned in a way that we are sort of mediating between, like, what the literature that is out there and our direct participants in our research, to see if it actually, if that language makes sense, or whether, on the other hand, we should be maybe analyzing it further or disrupting it a little bit, right? Or we can be contesting it. So language is, Susan Tilley tells us that language is extremely important. And this really takes us to the importance of representation, right? Because we need to be aware that whenever we are doing a work of research, we will be representing a reality, right? And so that is a huge responsibility to have. So for example, when you guys will decide your MRP topics, right? And you will go on and then write a proposal, and then you will go on and write a final, you will go on into the field and collect data from people. And then finally, you will write up all of this. What you're really doing is you're representing. You're going to be representing a specific piece of daily reality for some people. So it is important that you are aware of some of the issues and some of the complexities that can arise in that, right? Obviously, you will most likely be researching something that you're interested and passionate about. However, what you also will be researching is something that belongs to people, to other people. So you have to be able to make sure that what you're doing, in a sense, is respectful. The piece that you're putting forward is respectful of these people, right? You don't want to give, once something is in written form, once something is circulating in the public in written form, it becomes the truth about someone, right? So we have to always be considerate of that. We have to always think about what that means, right? And in the past, research has often been disrespectful, right? So in the past, remember we read Edward Said? Remember Edward Said's position on the politics of knowledge? So in the past, research has been dominated by specific people, right? It's been dominated by a Western perspective. it's been dominated by a white older men, right? So in a sense, the way that they've represented the world wasn't always fair to everyone else. And we've seen that. We've seen that with Said, right? We've seen that, for example, how the West misrepresented the Orient. And then from here, the idea of that Said writes about of Orientalism. We've seen how, for example, the West misrepresented Africa, right? In knowledge, in research, and in knowledge bodies. By representing it as a backwards country, continent, sorry, and so forth, and basically, and so basically, how all of this has, in the last 40 years, has started to be disrupted by resistance, right? Resistance by authors around the world, specifically from Asia and Africa, for example, that have started to resist these notions and show that actually they were very one-sided. And so we need to acknowledge all of this when we're actually working on our research, because we don't want to do the mistake. We don't want to be just like Edward Said was doing in his article, right? Edward Said, remember in the article, he is accused by another professor of using only white scholars to justify his work, and he says, well, but those are the ones that make sense of what I'm doing. But so what's important is that we are aware of our positioning as researchers, and we are aware of our research of the importance of collecting other voices in our research, voices which might not necessarily always be present in previous research. Does that make sense, guys, what I'm saying? I'll stop for a second just to sort of understand if what I'm saying is making sense to you, or if you guys are following, and if you have any questions in terms of what I'm saying so far. Are there any questions so far? Like any concerns, any comments that you want to make? Because I realized I've been talking for quite a while already on representation and the importance of basically respect, what respectful research means, in a sense. Any comments, questions? I hear none. So I'm imagining that everything is quite clear, or yeah, is everything clear? Like everything is. Okay. So okay. So basically, yes, I hear someone.
Let me ask.
Mohammed, is that you? I think someone was. I think Mohammed was about to make a comment, but then he fell off the line. I think fell off the line. Anyways, so that's. I see Hassan. Thank you for the thumbs up, Hassan. So I guess I'm hoping basically in a sense that this is making sense, that this is clear. So so yeah, Susan Tilley invites us to really consider the importance of and the responsibility that that the power of research gives us as researchers, so that we have basically the power to impact reality, to impact social reality, but we also have the power to represent social reality. And that and that because of our power to represent social reality, we really have to be aware of who we are, why we're doing this research, and what the participants want our research to accomplish. Does that make sense? So basically, those are some fundamental questions, and we're not today. Again, today is these weeks are really been sort of an introduction to doing research, because we will be focusing on this throughout the second term. In the winter, we will be looking at these questions all the time, as you guys will actually be writing your MRP proposals, right? Beginning to write your MRP proposals. So that's when these questions will really materialize themselves and become, and will actually appear to be substantial, because that's when you guys will be engaging with these questions, like, who am I? Why am I doing this? Why am I choosing this topic? What do I want to accomplish with this topic? All of these questions are key to Susan Tilley, because she believes that when we analyze, when we actually take these questions seriously, that's when we can create a work of research that's actually respectful, right? Of our participants. I see Mohammed has joined again. Mohammed, were you about to say something earlier?
Yeah, I have dropped when I was about to make my a little bit comment of what you have said. Really, I tried to read the two chapters of the book, and it was a bit complex to understand, but now I have understood. And what really stand out for me during when I was reading was the notion of power and privilege, and how this relates to who the topic of research, like for example, who conducts research, and how data is represented and disseminated throughout the reading. So uh, it was very good, you know, how you made it very simple for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And you mentioned two extremely important elements and concepts in the reading of Tilley, which are power and privilege. And you are absolutely, and these two concepts, they actually go together in a sense, because with power comes privilege, right? And so basically, and with privilege comes power at the same time. So we need to always, as researchers, we always need to be aware that we're in a position of power. And because we're in a position of power, the power is given to us by our discourse, by our words, right? By the words that we use and by our status. And because of that power, we have privilege. So we are basically privileged compared to maybe the participants that we're working with, right? Because our words will be, in a sense, given greater consideration than perhaps any other person's words. So that's extremely important, because basically, like an institution, for example, in this case, York University, will be giving you power to do to perform research. They will be approving your protocols. They will be approving your proposal, which means they will give you, in effect, the power and privilege to conduct a piece of research, right? So that's important. That's a very important matter, and we need to, in a sense, we need to take it seriously. And you're absolutely correct. So that it brings a lot of privilege, in a sense, the power that we hold when we're performing research. And those are key questions and key elements in Susan Tilley's work. In fact, it is not. It's actually in her book title, right? And in the book title, the book's title is actually Doing Respectful Research, Passion, Power, and Privilege. Not necessarily in those order, but those are three elements. So like how passion, because we usually choose a topic out of passion, right? We're really passionate about a specific issue or a specific concern, or there's something that we feel really strongly about. Privilege, because like you said, like we were saying, basically, we're in a privileged position. We're pursuing a master's, a PhD. So basically, we're considered, our words matter, in a sense. What we say, what we write matters, because our status is privileged compared to others, right? And passion and power, because all of this basically is embedded within power. So the fact that we are given a privileged status, the fact that we're able to work, in a sense, on the basis of our passions, also brings about power. So we have the power to change things, to enact differences. We have the power to impact, but we also have the power, like we said, to represent. So we have the power to, in a sense, make real what is already there, but to make it real for others. So these are all important aspects of that we need to consider when we're doing research. Now, so Tilley speaks about specifically, so her work, in a sense, well, she says her work is centered on three main aspects, right? And we're gonna look at it now right away. So there are three key words, in a sense, that she says this is like, in order for us to in order for us as researchers to really be aware of how power and privilege play a part of our research, we need to enact three things: critical reflexivity, distance dynamic, and respectful research, what she calls respectful research. So what are these three elements, according to Susan Tilley? So critical reflexivity means our ability as researchers to always be critical of ourselves. So that means, what does that mean? It means that we are always second guessing ourselves, right? We're always, it's like an ongoing process of questioning ourselves. So we keep asking ourselves, when we're conducting research, we keep asking ourselves, who am I? Why do I believe that? Why do I hold certain truths to be true? Like, why have I chosen this specific research focus? And why am I assigning such importance to these specific elements as compared to others, right? If we're able to do that, if we're able to be critically reflexive, we are able to actually take into consideration the elements of power and privilege, just like and respect our participants, just like Susan Tilley is saying. So if we're able to, in a sense, could keep questioning ourselves and keep questioning why we're selecting certain data and why we're giving that data so much importance, we are able to sort of deconstruct our own selves. We're able to deconstruct where our knowledge is coming from and why we're giving that knowledge so much importance. So that's the element of critical reflexivity. The other element that Susan Tilley talks about is the distance dynamic. So what does that mean? It means that we want our topics, whenever we choose a topic, basically, we want to consider our relation to that topic and our distance to that topic. So Susan Tilley, for example, gives us a very quick example of this, because she has done her dissertation work, her research work was with women in prison, right? So imprisoned women. And she obviously is not a woman in prison, right? She has never been in prison. She's never been jailed in her whole life. So this creates already some sort of distance, right, from the topic. Yet she's passionate about the topic. So she has passion for the topic, but she's not a woman in prison, right? So this creates a specific distance from the topic that she's researching. This can be good and bad. We don't judge this necessarily on good and bad, but it could be useful in a sense, right? Because the fact that she's not imprisoned means that she can look at the phenomenon of imprisonment, of women and women's imprisonment, from a little bit of an exterior point of view, which can be helpful. And at the same time, though, because she's exterior to the phenomenon, she also needs to be considerate of the fact that she doesn't understand the phenomenon fully, based on experiential knowledge, right? Because she doesn't experience it, and she hasn't experienced it. So because of that, she needs to be wary and careful and watchful of that and respectful of that, right? At all times. So she needs to be really, attentive and careful of what her participants are telling her about their experiences, right? And she needs to be very open, in a sense, to being wrong as well, and to really carefully listening to others. You see what I'm saying? So that's all about the distance dynamic. So we need to be aware, in a sense, of how distant we are from a topic, right? And how close and how close we can get to a topic as well. So how this dynamic can change. And Susan Tilley speaks of a dynamic, right? Why? She speaks of a dynamic because it can change. So it's not like a fixed status. So like we might start that we are like very distant from a topic, but then as we research it, we become very attached to it, very almost one with this topic, right? And so our position changes, because maybe in the meantime we meet the women. For example, in the case of Susan Tilley, she talks to these women, she meets with them regularly, she teaches them. So in a sense, her relationship to these women changes, and so does her relationship to the topic itself, right? So initially what was a lot of distance now becomes less and less and less and less. And she needs to consider that as she works, because both the distance and the proximity will influence the way she will write about her research afterwards, right? So another example of the distance dynamic, and this is an exercise I did last year with some of your colleagues last year. So when I went to the DAB, right? Last year I visited the DAB. I was at the Learning Center for 2 weeks, and I'm working with the last cohort of graduate students, and we worked face to face, which was great. I would have hoped to do the same with you guys, but unfortunately this year, because of COVID, I don't know if we'll be able to. It's very unfortunate. But anyways, this besides the point. The point I wanted to make is when I went to the DAB, I took a photo, right? I took a photo of the DAB Learning Center. And that's my photo that I took. That's the photo that I took. So this is obviously it's a simple example. It's a simplified example of research. Research is not just a photo, right? It usually includes a written component, or it includes a sort of analysis of the phenomenon as well, that what I'm trying to represent. But photos are good because they represent things in a very simple way. So when I come back from the DAB, right, I show people this photo, right? I show people this photo, like people that live here in Canada, my friends, my family, people that the public, right? This photo, and I say this is the Bear Learning Center, right? Now, some of you, and actually most of you, have probably been to the Bear Learning Center, right? Have used it and have like a lot of experience inside the Bear Learning Center. So you may argue, for example, that this photo is not necessarily representative of the Bear Learning Center. That actually, Mirko, you missed a lot of elements. You missed the computer room. Where's the computer room? Where's the computers? The computers are essential to what the Bear Learning Center is, right? To me, the computers are essential. Or maybe some of you might say, well, where is the women's room, right? Where women's room, for example, for and all the changes that have happened to the spaces for women. Where's the graduate program room, graduate seminar room? To me, the graduate seminar room is essential, right? So what I'm trying to say is, some of you may argue that this photo is either disrespectful or an incomplete representation of the Bear Learning Center, right? But I'm using this as the representation of the Bear Learning Center in Canada. So I need to be aware that this is not a complete account. And how would I make it more complete, you think? How could I make it more complete, this account? What's the most simple way to make it more complete? What do you think? Like, how could I better this photo in a sense to make it a more complete account of the Bear Learning Center? I could simply ask you guys, right? Ask the people that actually use the Bear Learning Center what they believe the Bear Learning Center is, correct? So maybe perhaps you might show these kind of photos. These are some of the photos that your colleagues took last year when looking at the Bear Learning Center. So Kasahun, for example, I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure some of you know Kasahun. He chose this place. To him, this is representative of the Bear Learning Center. To Dahabo, this was representative of the Learning Center. To Isnina, this was representative of the Bear Learning Center. And so forth, Abulong. So these are all photos taken of the same place, So we're all accounting for the same place, for the same topic, the Bear Learning Center. But we all have a different interpretation of what that learning center looks like to each and every one of us. So what changes is the degree of distance, is the distance dynamic. I came to the learning center as an outsider, right? As someone who had never seen the learning center before, had never lived through the learning center before. It wasn't aware of the history of the learning center to each and every participant. Now I could maybe put together all these photos and say this is the Bear Learning Center through the eyes of every participant, through the eyes, sorry, of every student, not participant, through the eyes of every student that actually lives and breathes the learning center. Does that make sense? So like this a little exercise of photos shows the distance dynamic, I think, right? It shows how to the view of an outsider, things look very different than to the views of someone who actually is living through that phenomenon, right? The views are very different, and they're influenced by the degree of distance that we have from that phenomenon. And we need, as researchers, we need to account for that degree of distance. And we need to also account for the relationships that we've built with the people that actually are living through that phenomenon. We need to be respectful of those relationships. So, and then the final piece, and the final element that Susan Tilley tells us about is doing respectful research. So what does respectful research mean? So it means thinking about, according to Susan Tilley, it means thinking about the, like you guys were saying previously as well, it means accounting for the protocols, for the ethical protocols of research. So what does it mean? So what do we need to do as researchers, for example, to make sure that our research is respectful of people, right? And this means completing the ethics, all the ethic forms, making sure that we are thinking about that. And secondly, it means to actually then take all of this and into practice. How is it informing our research? How are all these questions of ethics, our positioning, how is all of this informing our actual processes of research? How is it informing our work of research? Okay, so these are the three elements really that Susan Tilley speaks about. And then as you read the book, as you read maybe the 2 chapters, you'll also notice a little bit more interesting aspects. And if you have read it, the 2 chapters, you'll probably notice some patterns, right? Some of these elements reappear here and there in her chapter. Are there any questions or comments to like in terms of what I just said? Any concerns, any questions, comments? I noticed that Chipchumba also joined us. I know that you were having a lot of difficulties with the internet, Chipchumba, so don't worry about it. I know that you were having a lot of difficulties. I was told by Hassan previously as well. Keen, I see that you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, and as Susan tells us, and he talks more about the research, and most of the things she has been talks about is about the careful when you're doing about the research. So talks about respecting this idea to people who came together, because it may happen that sometimes when you're doing research, you will not do an interview for within your population or some population that you may not know. For example, you're doing from different community which have a different idea. A good example is about for me as in the DAP, when I'm talking for data collection research, I will do an interview from a different community, so that it is needed to do to respect one's idea and to know that how this person is to do it for him. The other one is that some people, when you're doing for interview, that person may need for a written document, and it may not be understanding from the what you have been saying for through by month, so that you must consider to them and also ask them that the way they feel like, to be asking the questions. And she also talks about some of the challenges that face it or that may affect it to you. And a good example is when you say that to go from a place and you want to do for an interview or a research, it may happen you will face for a challenge. It may happen that you have been taken an interview, at the same time you need to take a photo and they refuse for you to take the photo. That are some of the things that I have taken also the Susan. Thanks at all.
Thank you so much, Keen. That was very wonderfully put. I really enjoyed your comment. And yes, you're absolutely correct. There's many small issues that may present themselves once we're in the field, right? We say when we're in the field, and what we mean by in the field when you're doing research is when you are working to like collecting the data, right? When you're working with participants to collect data, that's what you mean by in the field or field work. So you're absolutely right. There's many issues that arise that small things, right? That you have to really be considerate about and understand why these issues are arising. Some of them might be consent related. You're absolutely correct. Aden, I see that you've unmuted yourself too. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Mikro, for your presentation. And in fact, when I was reading the Susan book, I was somehow confusing but the way you make it was very right. To add on that, what Susan was described in her article was, Susan was started an introduction of research, and then she has used qualitative questions, an open-ended question whereby she has said how, what, and all those. And by the way, the research that she was doing was human inclusion, and then now inclusivity, and now mostly, and she has, by the way, when she was conducting this research, she has involved a lot some problems whereby, and some of the people that she is conducting the interview, there is diversity of culture, ethnicity, and all those. So she was at one time, at one point, she wanted to be respected in everybody's culture, and also ethnicity and all those. And now that the way you have done was, I just was enjoyed, and it was very marvelous presentation the way you have made it, and then I have understood the Susan Derry book. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Aden. And as the chapters continue, so like actually you guys will be receiving, you all will be receiving a copy of the Susan Tilley book. So keep that in mind. So like right now we're just looking at the first few chapters, right? But from probably around January, you guys should be receiving, each one will receive a copy of the book, and that's yours to keep. That copy of the book is yours to keep. And you'll see that each chapter, as we move forward, because we will be working on Susan Tilley all of the second term in the winter. So starting January, we will be looking into detail at the chapters, because it will assist you as you actually start to write your MRP proposal, basically. Like the book is divided in such a way, like every chapter addresses like a step into the process. So like one chapter addresses how to choose a research topic. The next chapter addresses how to go from a research topic to research questions. Then the next chapter addresses how do you do a literature review? What literature do you include? Do you read, and which ones you don't? The next chapter then addresses the methodology. So which methods do you choose for your research questions, right? To collect data. And then after that, analysis and so forth. So, and then all of the issues, ethical issues and concerns that can pop up at the various steps, at the various levels of your process. Do you see what I mean? So you'll see that Susan Tilley's book is actually very, very helpful in the sense, in the ways that she helps us think through some of these complex problems, right? So in the way that she helps us think through, for example, what am I supposed to do now with this with this data, and how can I relate to the people that I like, the community? Like you guys were bringing excellent points. What happens if, like for example, what happens if I decide to do research on female genital mutilation in the camps? There's a lot of barriers there, right? There's a lot of barriers, possible issues and ethical concerns that I have to be aware of. A, B, maybe perhaps it's not even the best idea, because maybe I might have to choose another topic altogether, maybe like change it a little bit. Because for me, a white male coming from North America, doing research on let's say Muslim women who are facing female genital mutilation, it might be there's maybe a lot too many barriers there, right? So perhaps I might not do a good job of presenting the issues. Like for example, like I remember Rukia last week was mentioning gender. A few weeks ago was mentioning gender. So gender can become a big barrier, right, when speaking about very sensitive issues, right, of gendered issues. Perhaps the participants won't be very truthful with me. They won't tell everything because they'll feel embarrassed or sensitive, right? So they won't really give me a lot of information, a lot of data, or it won't be very truthful, right? They won't be authentic. They won't feel at ease. They won't feel comfortable with me, right? So there's a risk there, and so the information might not really be respectful. It might not be full, might not be complete, and so the research I might end up doing might be very, I don't know, very, very limited in a sense, and very questionable as well from a validity standpoint, right? Because we also always have to think about validity of the research. So these are the sort of questions that Tilley introduces us to. she asks us to think about who we are as people, what's our position, right? And socially speaking, what's our status, who are we, what's our identity, and how our identities then relate to the identities, for example, of our participants, and how that can help or hinder, so how it can assist, or how it can actually disrupt the research process and make it maybe sometimes not as respectful as it could be, not fully respectful of the topic or of the participants, most importantly. And yeah, and then basically she takes these accounts and these questions into the field, basically. So it looks at, throughout her work, she will look at specifics of each step, like how these larger questions then actually take place into each and every step, how they take form, how they take shape into each and every step of the way. There's also the big question of qualitative versus quantitative, but we'll talk more about that, I think, next week. We'll talk more about that next week, I think, considering that I think time is a little bit running out today, and I know that some of you also want to return to the other class, the peer mentorship class, I think. So I don't want to I'm also aware of that, and I don't want to cause any issues for any of you. So what I want to say is, if there's any questions or concerns or comments, please do speak up right now. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll take another few minutes, and then I think we'll close the session for today, and we'll see each other next week. So next week, what we'll do is we'll continue talking again about Susan Tilley. That's pretty much going to be our main topic from here to, as I said, till the end of the year, so till April. And at the same time, then next week we'll also decide what to do together collectively as a group. We'll decide what to do with the book group assignments, because for those of you who weren't here at the beginning of class today, we did speak about we were talking about the difficulties that some of the groups are having with connectivity, laptops, and so forth, and so in progressing through the book group presentations. And so, because I'm aware of that, I do want to take the decision together next week on whether we want to postpone the presentations till the first week that we return after the holidays, after the break, or whether we want to actually complete it before we go on break, in a sense. But that's a conversation for next week, I think. And hopefully everyone will be here. Chachumba, Keen, Rukia, Hassan, Mohammed, Aden, any last questions, comments? Maybe there was something you wanted to add to the presentation on Tilley. Or maybe you had a question that you wanted to ask. Go for it. Chipchumba, I see you've unmuted yourself. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi. I'm sorry for coming late. It's maybe I have been here since 2, but I was not able to log in because of internet. Finally, I thank God because I've been there. I've been hearing some, then sometimes off, sometimes on, but thanks. I'm just requesting that you share the recording on WhatsApp so that I can continue watching it, and then I may comment on the Tilley.
Absolutely, I will for sure, Chipchumba. You can count on it. As soon as we're done, I will upload the recording on YouTube and then share with you guys. Share the link as always with you, so that you can watch it afterwards. I know. I noticed that you kept popping in, out constantly. So I noticed your little image coming in and out. So I know. I saw that it was very, very problematic to join today. That's fine. Thank you, and thank you for reminding me of that. But yes, I will definitely make the recording available for all of you. You can count on it. Yeah, Rukia is also in the same situation, she's telling me. So yes, Rukia, don't worry, the recording will be available for you guys to have a look, and then you can comment. Once you're able to go through the recording and listen and read the book, you can also always add a discussion add a post on the discussion forum. That's what I meant to say. So that you can post your comments there if you want. So I see Keen has no questions, perfect. Mohammed, Hassan, any last questions? Aden, any last questions? Otherwise,
no, Micro.
Aden, yes.
I don't have a question, but also the way Chupchumba and Ruqya are suffering, even our friend Omot is suffering. He's telling me, he has called me right now and he told me that he was unable to join the Zoom link due to network conductivity.
Okay.
And then that's what he was telling me. Yeah.
Thank you, Aden. Thank you for also bringing that to my attention as well, because I know Almut is always. I mean, you guys. I have to say, you guys are awesome because you are always in attendance. I know, like every time you try, like I can tell that sometimes you are popping in and out, but I can see that you guys are trying always to be there. So that, to me, as an instructor, that's everything. That's everything I can wish for, in a sense, right? That my students try to attend. At the end of the day, if I know that sometimes there's issues, and that unfortunately happens. But so thank you in a sense. Thank you for being there. Thank you for really trying, like dedicating yourself to the course. Thank you for trying to be there, and always thank you also for following. Like even if you're not able to follow through the lesson today, I know that you watch the recordings and then post. So as long as I see you guys are being active, that's the most I can wish for. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say, in a sense. Thank you for your commitment to the course, and keep at it. And I hope that the laptop issues and connectivity issues will solve themselves as we move forward as well, because I know it's frustrating. And as we were saying at the beginning of class too, I know it's frustrating to have to work without the resources as well. It's and especially laptops in a graduate course are crucial resources. So I hope that in the new year you all have your laptops and they will be functioning and you'll be able to work with them. In the meantime, of course, as we've been doing, if you need to like handwrite your assignment, you are welcome to do so. And I don't have any problems with that whatsoever. Yeah, I think that's all for me today. Guys, have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Next week we'll be meeting again on Saturday. So they've been moved to Saturdays now, right? Just because to make space for the peer mentorship as well. So that's why we've been moved to Saturdays. The time, I will confirm with you the time during the week, because apparently I was told by Mohammed that Hayun will be contacting me about time. So the time might change a little bit. So I'll let you guys know as soon as we confirm the time. All right, for next week. And then next week we will continue talking about Susan Tilley. We will talk about specifically qualitative versus quantitative methodologies. And we will also make a decision together about the book groups, whether we want to present them before the break or after the break. Okay? Stay safe, everyone. Be safe. Take care of yourselves, of your families, communities, and I will see you all next week. All right? Look forward to seeing you guys. And if any questions comes about, write to me on WhatsApp or call me if you need to. Just send me a message before calling me so it's not in the middle of the night. Make sure that it's not in the middle of the night if you call me. All right. Otherwise, you scare me. I think something's wrong. Bye, guys. Take care. Nice seeing everyone.